Welcome to part 2 of the video tutorial for Vroom's participative decision-making model for homework assignment number 2 in Management 101. Here we have the time-driven model, and as you can see, it's a decision tree. And by decision tree, I mean we're going to look at each question. We're going to answer either high or low. That's going to take us to the next question where we'll answer either high or low, and it will take us through and eventually tell us which of the 5 decision styles to use. Anytime we see a dash, we are going to look at that as a not applicable. That's a question we're not going to answer. As a very quick example, if we were making a decision that was not very significant, we would answer low. We would never then rise above this line here because we had answered low, not high. If we then said that not only was the decision not significant, it wasn't very important that the group be committed. Second question is importance of commitment. We would answer low. For that particular set of answers, these dashes tell us that we would not answer questions 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7, and we would go straight to the actual style, and that style would be decide. If we had instead answered that it was a significant decision, that there was a high importance of commitment, that we knew everything we needed to know, but it was unlikely that the group would be committed if we made the decision ourselves, it's a good group. They show support for the organizational objectives. They know quite a bit about the problem at hand, and they've shown a lot of competence in making decisions in the past. We would instead use the delegate style. So using this, let's follow this example. You're a new manager. You find that someone in your department has been making lots of personal copies. The extra expense is affecting your budget. You want the copying to stop. You're pretty sure you know who's making the copies. So the first question is, are we dealing with a significant or non-significant decision? This one is significant. So for this, we're going to answer high. Let me bring up the pen here. We're going to answer high for that. Okay. The next thing that we're going to look at, there we go, didn't work the first time. We're going to ask about the importance of commitment. How important is it that the group be committed to the decision? Well, if we want the copies to stop, that's pretty important. We need them to be committed. Then we ask about leader expertise, question number 3. How much do we actually know about this? Now this is open to interpretation. It says we're pretty sure we know who's doing the copying, but do we really? My preferred answer here would be low, and that's what I'm going to choose. We don't really know enough, but I'm going to put a little line here under high. We'll see what happens if we had answered high there. Next, likelihood of commitment, question number 4. If we made the decision ourselves, if we said stop making these copies, how likely is it that they would stop making the copies? Your typical employee, if they're told to stop making the copies, is going to stop making the copies. So actually I think we can say that the likelihood of commitment is high. But up here, we're going to go ahead and put a line under that. Because remember, we're seeing what happened if we had answered high here for leader expertise. The next question is group support. What type of support for objectives have we seen from this group in the past? Well, it's hard to talk about the group as a whole, but we do know that somebody is wasting our budget, making personal copies that they shouldn't be making. That would lead me to say that the group support for objectives, at least in this situation, is low. They are doing something that's bad for the department, that's bad for the business, and so that doesn't exhibit a lot of support for the objectives. And we'll choose that answer here also. However, you notice, if we had followed this pathway of high and high, we've got dashes the rest of the way across. So actually, we wouldn't need to answer that if we had followed this pathway. Following the pathway that I've been circling, we end up being done here as well. We don't have to ask about group expertise. We don't have to ask about team competence. So following this pathway, we end up with consult individuals. We're going to look at each person individually. We're going to talk to them on a one-on-one basis. We're going to get information from them. Basically, we're going to find out who's making the copies, and then we're going to make the decision on what to do about it. If we had followed the other pathway, if we had said that we know everything we need to know, we know who's making the copies, and it's likely that they'll stop if we tell them to, we wouldn't have answered any more questions, and we would have gotten to decide. That means we would have decided Hey Joe, you're the one making the copies. Stop doing that. Decide would sort of be our second best answer. This is what I call a self-healing model. If you have a slightly different answer on one of these questions than what the so-called correct answer would be, you in many cases are going to end up at either the exact same style or one that's very, very close to it. And decide is just a little bit more autocratic than consult individuals. The only difference here, is that with consult individuals, you are actually telling them what the problem is. With decide, you might ask them for information without telling them what the problem is. This is an example of the development-driven model. Same questions. The only real difference with this version is you never answer question number 3. Notice the dashes. Leader expertise is important here because the focus, the value, what we're trying to do is develop the group to become better decision makers. We still use the model the same way. We're supervising, for this example, 5 part-time employees who are high school students. Our store has been losing customers. We don't really know why. We'd like to find out and improve that situation. The first question, how significant is the decision? I don't care who you are. If you're losing customers, that's a significant decision. How important is commitment? If we make a decision to stop losing customers, how important is it that this crew comply? It's very important. So we're going to put high on that. It's hard to argue that one. Remember, with the development-driven model, we'll never answer question number 3. So now we have to answer question 4, likelihood of commitment. For question 4, I could go both ways on this. These are 5 part-time employees. These are high school students, and I don't mean any disrespect, but these are not necessarily your best possible employees. So a lot of people here would say, the likelihood of commitment is pretty low. But let's see what would happen. We'll go put a line under it here if we had said high. We'll follow this pathway first. If we'd answered low here, what's the group support for objectives? Again, maybe we don't know quite enough for this particular situation, but let's say that it's low, because if it was high, we wouldn't be losing customers. And if we answer low to that, we're done. We don't answer question 6 or 7, and we do consult group. We call everybody together in a meeting, we tell them, hey, we're losing customers, and we get their ideas on what to do about it. Exactly what you probably would have said you should do in this situation, even if you weren't using the model. If we had followed this pathway of high, skip number 3, and high for likelihood of commitment, and then answered low for group support here, again we would have been done, and guess where we ended up? We ended up with consult group again. As I said, it's essentially a self-healing model. Even if you differ on 1 or 2 questions, you frequently end up with either the same style or a style that's right next to it, a second best answer. Now, for your assignment, we're going to move on to part 3 of this video, and we'll explain how to do the assignment.